Player Caitlyn Clark was kept away from reporters last night after posting a triple-double as she continues to face race-based attacks. And then Clark's head coach, Stephanie White, well, she didn't want biological men kicked out of women's sports, and she made that pretty clear.
I don't know that I would say that I'm educated enough from a scientific standpoint. I don't ever believe that exclusion is an answer. I just don't. I do think, when we think about various levels of sport, various governing bodies of sport and things that go into that. Like I said, I'm not educated enough at the different levels. I know growing up, I played with the boys all the time.
Not educated enough. Well, this comes as Clark's teammate Sophie Cunningham, who might be educated enough, well, she was booed for wanting to protect those female athletes. Some players even bailed on a press conference when asked what they thought about Cunningham and her stance. Take a look.
Speaking of that outside noise, Sophie, your teammate, Sophie came out with
Oh, thank you. Have a good day. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
The fans, however, they rallied for Cunningham in Portland ahead of last night's game. And they have another rally planned for tomorrow's game in Minnesota, where Coach Cheryl Reeve has said, quote, "Separate isn't equal and trans lives matter."
Caitlyn Clark, fourth in the league in scoring, second in the league in assists. You expect a big number every time they're on the floor because Caitlyn has such command of the offense.
Clark on the drive, gets inside and banks it in. Clark, oh, she hit it! The Fever want to play fast, and Clark banks it home, taking advantage of it. Clark from way downtown, she hits a three!
When she has the ball in her hands, she makes things happen.
Now it's Boston, flipping it home. Clark finds Mitchell, impossible angle, Mitchell lays it in. Clark, here's rolling, it's Timpson, it's 10 assists, a triple-double for Caitlyn Clark. Caitlyn Clark has her fourth career triple-double.
We need to talk about what is coming tomorrow because the matchup on the schedule is not just another regular season game. This is the one the entire basketball watching world has been waiting for. This is Caitlyn Clark versus Olivia Miles. The Indiana Fever taking on the Minnesota Lynx, the most dominant point guard in the history of this league, going up against the most exciting young point guard to emerge this entire season. And the stakes could not be more significant for either franchise heading into the final stretch of the regular season. Let us be completely direct about what this game actually represents, because it deserves that honesty before we go anywhere else. Clark has been on an absolute tear. In her last 5 games, she is averaging 28 to 29 points per game, 8 assists, and shooting 55% from the field with 48% from three-point range. Those numbers are not simply good. Those numbers belong in the conversation about the most sustained and dominant individual offensive stretch in the history of women's professional basketball. She has heard every dismissive comment this season. She has absorbed every narrative designed to minimize what she is building. She has watched the disrespect pile up from multiple directions simultaneously. And she has responded in the only language that actually matters in professional sports, by going out game after game and making it absolutely impossible for any honest observer to look anywhere else. Tomorrow, she is going to carry all of that momentum into one of the most difficult environments Indiana will face all season. Olivia Miles has been exceptional this season, and that needs to be acknowledged clearly and without qualification. She is a legit identity reaches an entirely different level when Collier is anchoring it. Their offensive versatility expands considerably when she is creating and finishing at the rate she is capable of producing. If you thought the Lynx were a difficult matchup before her return, you were underestimating what her presence actually means for the full picture of this roster. Now let us be specific about what Indiana needs to do to win this game, because the path to victory is real, even if it is narrow. The Indiana Fever backcourt must outplay the Minnesota Lynx backcourt. That is the foundational requirement for everything else. Clark and Mitchell together need to combine for 50 or more points. That specific number is the threshold. Clark needs to approach double-digit assists. The backcourt has to win their individual battles at the point of attack because the front-court matchup creates enough concern that Indiana cannot afford to lose both dimensions of this game simultaneously. Napheesa Collier and Natasha Howard together in that front court is a genuinely frightening competitive pairing for Indiana in the most honest assessment of what both sides bring. Monique Billings is going to have her hands full. Aaliyah Boston cannot outperform both of them simultaneously and should not be expected to. What Indiana needs from Boston is not domination of the front court matchup. What Indiana needs from Boston is equilibrium. Keep it reasonably even. Do not allow the front court contest to become such a decisive advantage for Minnesota that it neutralizes everything Clark and Mitchell produce on the other end. That is the specific assignment, and even meeting that more modest standard is going to require genuine effort and genuine focus from players who are being asked to compete against two of the best front court contributors from the logo and makes it. You cannot fully prepare for what Clark produces from beyond the distances that most players treat as irrelevant to the offensive game plan. When she gets into rhythm, when the offensive system flows through her in the way it does when the right coaching decisions allow it to, when Mitchell is moving off the ball and creating the reads that Clark exploits with her passing, the defensive structures that even the most sophisticated coaching staff has assembled begin to crack in ways that cannot be entirely anticipated or prevented. Minnesota will double. They will run offensive principles their coach has installed. Indiana is going to have to work for everything to confirm. Natasha Howard is averaging 16 and 8 and has been one of the more underappreciated contributors in the league this year. Courtney Williams is providing 15 points of consistent energy and competitive engagement off her typical intensity. And beyond that starting unit, they have bench contributors, including players who would legitimately start on most other rosters in this league, coming off the bench to maintain the competitive quality without the drop-off that typically accompanies substitution patterns. Indiana's bench does not carry that same depth. Sophie Cunningham is the primary offensive weapon from the second unit, and she has been excellent in that role throughout this season. Michaela Timpson brings athletic defensive energy, but the depth disparity between these two rosters is real, and it will show up in ways that matter when Minnesota's coaching staff uses rotations and game management to wear down Indiana's primary contributors across 4 quarters. The honest coaching comparison also has to be named directly. Reeves is operating at a different level from White when it comes to in-game adjustment, game management, and the kind of organizational vision that produces collective investment from an entire roster. That gap is real, and it could influence this game in moments where the difference between the right adjustment and the wrong one changes the outcome of multiple possessions simultaneously. Indiana advantage belongs to the Lynx. The depth advantage belongs to the Lynx. The front court matchup, when Collier and Howard are placed against Boston and Billings, belongs to the Lynx by a margin that cannot be honestly minimized. And yet this game is genuinely, completely winnable for Indiana because of one specific variable that no defense in this league has yet found a reliable and repeatable answer for. Caitlyn Clark, fully healthy, fully unrestricted, operating in a hostile environment with everything on the line, is the single most difficult individual offensive challenge in women's professional basketball. She does not shrink from hostile environments. She performs in them at a level that defies the defensive preparation applied to stopping her. She has been doing it from the biggest stages at Iowa to the historical performances of this WNBA season. The noise does not bother her. The stakes do not bother her. The difficulty of the opponent does not cause her to retreat from the competitive challenge. She is specifically built for exactly this kind of game, and the record of her career across the moments that required everything she had confirms that more clearly than any preview analysis can. Tomorrow is one of those moments. The Minnesota Lynx are formidable. Olivia Miles is going to compete with genuine excellence and full preparation. Cheryl Reeves is going to have her team organized and motivated and executing the collective principles that have made them the best team in this league. All of that is real, and Caitlyn Clark is going to show up for all of it. That is the matchup. That is the game. And the result of it is going to tell us something genuinely definitive about what this Indiana Fever team is capable of when the competition level finally reaches the tier the postseason demands. Sound the alarm the moment she gets hot from the logo, because when Clark is locked in from beyond the range that most players never attempt, there is no defensive preparation sufficient to contain the damage she does. This is the matchup. This is the moment. Tomorrow it begins.